Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck tech video. Today I'm going to be showing my Rakdos Lord of Riots EDH deck. This is a Tribal Demon casual funsy deck. I will go ahead and explain what Rakdos does, but if you're looking into this video to find deck tech ideas for specifically this commander, you may want to look somewhere else. He is here because he's a demon and the deck is not trying to break him. So, Rakdos Lord of Riots here is a 4-mana 6/6 flying trampler, very stringent on the mana cost, being black, black, red, red. That usually means you have to have a very strong mana base, not a lot of room for colorless sources of mana. He has two effects here, one being that he cannot be cast unless an opponent has been dealt damage or lost life sometime during my turn, or the turn I cast him. The second effect is my creature spells cost less per the amount of life my opponents have lost. So the first line here, a little bit tricky. Again, this is a casual demon tribal deck. There really isn't any way for me to trick him out early. Most Rakdos decks want to have some kind of ping effect, maybe a 1-drop like Mog Fanatic or the Will-O-the-Wisp or some way. So turn 1 they have an offense, turn 2 a land like a ramp like a charcoal diamond or something like that to help with its colors. So on turn 3 you can make someone lose a life and cast your giant thing on turn 3. That opens the door for crazy things on turn 4, which is this bit down here. A lot of Rakdos decks like to go combo. They will put him into play and then do some kind of enter the battlefield flicker nonsense using Cloudstone Curio. More recent decks I've even seen use the Paradox engine to help cast and get colored mana when looping creatures, so you can go with infinite enter the battlefield triggers. Classically it's done with Cloudstone Curio and like old Eldrazi. But this deck does not do that. If you're interested in that type of deck, I can make a few recommendations. I may leave those in the text box below. But for this deck, we are running Tribal Demons for flavor. So there is Rakdos, Lord of Riots at the helm. He does come out sometimes a little early. I do have a few early aggressive demons. But he is here for flavor reasons and to help reduce the cost of some of the gigantic demons if for some reason he's allowed to survive. There are two bits of flavor I have imposed on this deck. The number one bit is this is a Liliana the Veil themed deck. There is her story arc being described in the deck. This is the one and only Planeswalker in the deck. The art here is by Satong. He is a very, I would say, famous altarist who sells his things on eBay. I have a nice collection of these. But the Lily story is that there are 4 demons Lily has got her power from. Grizzlebrand is unfortunately banned, but Demon Lord Belznok actually just got spoiled. And each demon thus far has had a tutor that features the demon in the artwork of the tutor. So while I can't run Grizzlebrand, I have the tutor that has him in the artwork, and the other demons in the storyline, and hopefully Demon Lord Belznok will have a matching tutor. But let's go through the rest of the deck here. So we'll stick him up here, and when there's effects that actually work with him, I'll go ahead and explain it. We have a Abyssal Persecutor. We have about 18-ish demons. We technically have 20 demons, 18 actual physical demons, and I'll explain the last 2 when we get there. But Abyssal Persecutor is a fun early game demon. This is actually a very interesting effect. In multiplayer, if he's out, someone cannot combo win if they're using an effect that says I win the game, because this will override that. For example, in a 3-player game, if this is in play, and one player tries to draw death themselves with Laboratory Maniac, he cannot technically win the game because the other opponent cannot lose the game. Thus, this is an interesting card in late games, because some people do or do not want it to die. On the other hand, this is coming out early for me, and I can just start chipping away. Another early drop is the Desecration Demon, old standard Ravnica nonsense. We have Archfiend of Ifnir. This is a black-red deck. What the deck does is it tries to throw out a random demon here and there, and then try to do a mass reanimation. So the fact that he can cycle himself straight to the graveyard, essentially entombing himself, is fantastic. That's actually why he's in the deck. Then we have Kagemaru. This is one of my pet favorite demons. This deck can have a giant grip, but realistically he's going to come out early and usually just blow up a lot of creatures to help me get to the late game. Oh, I didn't mention the second on flavor point of this deck. As I said, there's the Lily flavor. This deck also is as subject to demon flavor as possible, as in there's 0 life gain in the deck except for one weird, unrealistic exception. There is 0 demon support. There's no, not a Disciple Bolus. There's not any kind of, tribal effects. There's no, even ramp from Solemn Simulacrum. It's literally just these demons and the act of paying life into the deck. So the deck tends to hurt me a lot. We have Blood Gift Demon. This is actually one fun way you can use to get Rakdos out in a more casual environment. I can use this to make an opponent draw. Although realistically, if I have a 5-mana flyer, I'm likely to just go to combat and try to get Rakdos out second main. We have the Archfiend of Depravity. This is fun to keep the Token Swarm decks at bay a little bit. Then we have Master of Cruelties. This is a bit of a joke. Unless you're playing Kalia in a more competitive group, this card really doesn't do anything. He's going to either removal spell or just get chump blocked. This deck doesn't have a way of tricking his attack alone clause, but otherwise he's a good defender. Realistically, although this is probably the worst demon in the deck, and he needs to be replaced. Most likely this may become the Demon Lord Bilsnock. We have Malfegor, who actually may be the better commander for this deck, since this is just a good creature removal spell, and my deck can operate without a hand fairly easily, because this is a late game mana burn type deck. Alternatively, this is a deck that runs Entomb, so if an opponent were to cast Rise of the Dark Realms, and I can Entomb this into my graveyard as a joke, that may get him. Now that's happened before, and it's of course very funny. We have the Harvester of Souls to help us draw some cards. We have Kothafed to also help us draw cards. Kothafed is actually one of my favorite demons ever printed, probably top 3. He's not scary, he's not very intimidating, it's a very suicidal demon. But this is one of the demons from Liliana's story arc. He is the demon that is also pictured in the Dual Decks Demonic Tutor. But this demon is sadly dead. But as the deck itself, it's a nice 6-mana flying beater, and it will draw me a few cards. Hopefully no one Armageddons. Obnix, there's a few different versions of this card. I chose this one specifically because there's a chance I could instantly reanimate a creature or two, or all. Reanimating this in response to someone cracking a fetch land or doing something stupid like Boundless Realms really makes them consider failing to find or just not going through with it. We have Sire of Insanity. Again, this is a bit of an awkward card. This is a very casual deck, so it does have a Entomb and a Reanimate. So yes, Sire could come out on turn 2, but this deck does not have a late game plan. So getting this out early will likely just make me an arch enemy, and then I will never be able to recover from my own loss. But this is a fantastic card late game and in general as well. We have Defiler, who ironically enough tends to kill some of my own demons as much as the opponents. Then we have Havoc Demon, another pet favorite, something I used to love with Cauldron Dance. Again, an instant speed trick during combat. But here we just have a 7-mana 5/5, usually a target removal stick. We have the Obvious Demon in the Obvious Demon deck. We have Lord of the Void as one of my favorite attacking demons, something that usually also warrants removal. I love holding up my instant speed reanimation effects or end of turn reanimation effects for him, because usually connecting with him can throw a game. We have Razaketh, another of the Demon Lords that is under Lily, or had Lily under her. This is the most recent one, who is also dead. This deck cannot abuse Razaketh as most decks want to. There's no reassembling skeleton or Bloodghast or anything like that. But this is usually a way that if I do a mass reanimation effect, and usually what happens is my creatures all get blown up, I can at least get some card advantage out of that. And finally we have Kuru, another one of my favorite demons. This is an odd one. A lot of people just tend to ignore it, but realistically this card can take over the game. In some situations, your opponents will see you keeping your other opponent's creatures at bay. And it's like a Grave Pact effect where no one wants to commit to the board until the dumb thing's gone. The difference is this is a 9/9 body and can keep attacking. And that giant damage swing does tend to... I can honestly say, out of all the demons in this deck, Kuru has probably won me the most games, literally riding off the back of this ability. Now, as I said, those are the 18 demons of the deck. There are 2 more secret demons. They are not actually printed as a demon until you transform them. These are not the cards themselves. The deck I have is in these. These are kept as secondary cards, so I don't have to flip cards up and down. But we have Withengar. He comes from the equipment, which is, again, a bit of a joke. Realistically, it's hard to connect. And I have flipped to Withengar a few times, but he himself doesn't have very much protection. He tends to just die. Second to that, we have Orman Doll, which is even more of a joke, because I can't really sacrifice 5 creatures easily in a deck where most of my creatures cost 6 or more mana. This is, of course, the only printed thing of lifelink in the entire deck. And while I have been playing this for a little over a month or two now, he's been transformed a few times. He's never connected once in combat. It's just a very obvious, there's the threat, everyone knows to look for it, and as soon as you transform it, it's kind of scary. He usually gets pathed or bounced immediately. So yeah, 20 demons, 18 confirmed demons, but 2 more special ones. Let's go through the spells. There's not a lot of special stuff to this deck. It's just demons and removal spells and drawish, tutorish, like reanimate-ish stuff. That's it. So we have Vamp Toot. Of course, the artwork here shows Shayuku from Mirage. But we have Demonic Tutor, which features Kothafed. We have Dark Petition, which features Grizzlebrand, the Avacyn Restored demon of Lily's story arc. And we have probably the worst one, Razaketh's Right. This features Razaketh. This is a god-awful tutor. This almost always cycles itself, so this basically is just pay a black draw card. But it features the demon, and I'm on the fence about this. I may have to break flavor since 5 mana tutors really is just not good. We have some Graveyard Tutors and Entomb for an instant speed effect. This actually tends to get something like a Frantic Search or a Faithless Looting more than a creature. The deck is 38 lands and it doesn't have a lot of mid-game effects, so just keep drawing and whatnot is better. And this can put any card, like a land, like a Wasteland or something in my graveyard, but Demon or Frantic Search. Faithless Looting, sorry. Buried Alive will go fill the graveyard with 3 Dirtly Demons, usually a scary threat and 2 nonsensical threats to make my opponents wonder what I'm actually doing. And then we have the Faithless Looting, Tormenting Voice, and Cathartic Reunion for some draw discard. Very good early game effects to get landfalls and dump expensive demons. We have some hard draw and Sign in Blood and Read the Bones. And a Reforge the Soul. A Wheel of Fortune would be in the deck if I had enough to go around. And then we have the Reanimation Package itself. Not a whole bunch, really, but we have the Reanimate because it's the cheapest mana-wise. We have Stitched Together, since the deck does tend to fill the graveyard very quickly. We have Patriarch's Bidding for Tribal. I mean, just getting all the demons back is fantastic. A good follow-up to the Buried Alive. One of my favorite cards, and one that has probably also won me more games out of this entire deck, is Twilight Skal. It's like a... yeah, it's essentially just a 6 mana Buried Alive. Not Buried Alive. Oh shit, I can't remember the Tempest one now. Whatever, it's a 6 mana version of that where I can pay 2 more to do it at instant speed. I don't have many tribal effects to pump my demons or give them haste, other than 1 pair of boots, so there's no Chroma's Memorial in this deck. But doing this at the end of an opponent's turn, landing me a giant stack of demons, is usually going to swing the game if they can't immediately destroy them. On top of that, a lot of my demons have effects. Like I can just start taking over the game by removing creatures that they may have returned, or tutoring, or drawing cards, or whatever. So probably my favorite card in the deck, and my opponents know to look for this because it's silly. And then of course we have the Rise of the Dark Realms. Alternative to attacking with dumb demons, we have another win condition, and, well, there's Yogwill. Another win condition coming up in Torment of Hailfire. So there's 2 other burn spells in the deck, one being Torment, one being Cut to Ribbons. Again, that should or could be Exsanguinate, but for flavor reasons, I did not want any effect that could gain me life. So, we are playing Torment and Cut to Ribbons as alternative win conditions. Well, we have a lot of removal in this deck, and Vandal Blast and Abrade. This could be considered a spot removal, and if so, there are 6 targeted creature spot removal spells, as Cut and the Ribbons, as said. The Go for the Throat, Terminate, Dreadbore for Planeswalkers, and Dismember. We have some Wipes and Toxic, so... Again, this deck does like to pay life, and this is the fun one I like to say I could just kill myself anytime I want with. We have Damnation, Decree of Pain, and an All's Dust to get rid of those pesky enchantments. Let's go through the rest of the deck here. There's just a few artifacts. Again, there's not a lot of support here. Most of this is just Mana Ramp. We have I think there's 8 of these. We have Wayfarer's Bauble and Soul Ring and Mana Vault for turn 1 plays. We have the Felwar Stone, the Signet, Mind Stone, Talisman, and the Pair of Diamonds, my favorite 2-drop mana rocks in all of the game. Realistically, there's a lot of broken rocks you can plug in commander decks, and a lot of bad mana rocks you can plug in commander decks, but in my opinion, these are the fairest and most balanced of all mana rocks possible. It's not something you can just go off with immediately on a storm turn, for example, but it fixes your colors. These also do allow for turn 3 Rakdos if you had some kind of ping effect. We have the Expedition map. This is going to grab us one of 3 lands. So we have a deck that runs Torment of Hailfire, so we obviously run the Urborg and the Cabal Coffers. Typically with this, you go get Urborg first to fix your callers because you don't want to expose Cabal Coffers too early. If you happen to have both, then you can also get Deserted Temple, so you can double up on your activation of Cabal Coffers. But yeah, you don't always want to expose your Cabal Coffers too early. We have Lightning Greaves to hopefully protect one of our demons. And we have the Binding Blade, Elber's Blade. This is where we get Withengar from. Again, this is a bit of a joke. It's really hard to broadcast, or it's obvious to broadcast what's about to happen, and paying 7 mana for an equipment is kind of rough. So, luckily this only costs 1 to equip, so once it's in play, it does tend to stick around, but it's a bad card. Let's go on through the lands. So there are 38 lands in the deck. The issue here is that we're playing a semi-reanimator giant stuffed deck with small ramp, like 2-drop ramps, and a lot of cantrippy do stuff, like fill the graveyard effects. The issue with that type of deck is if someone disrupts your plan, you can't reanimate or something like that, so you have to hard cast your demons, which means making land drops every turn counts. So we have the 3 big mana ones. I mean, coffers may not actually tap for mana if you count it as a land sometimes, but there's these 3. Then we have the Bloodstained Mire to go fetch the other fetchable targets. Again, I need to reiterate, I'm a vain person. I only play the on-color fetches unless it is a hyper-competitive deck. So this deck only runs Bloodstained Mire. But it can go fetch these other calling-fixing lands. There could be like bad lands in here if you had the money. We have the Carnarium for a little bit of return. I don't actually like bounce lands, but again, this is the type of deck where you need to have landfall every turn. So the potential of bouncing a previous land to your hand to have a second land on the following turn is good. But these tend to get blown up in my meta. Just generic color fixers in the Temple, Taint. We have a nice command tower here. The Graven Cairns, Dragon Skull Summit, and this is a bit of an awkward spot. In a more tuned Rakdos Lord of Riots deck where you consistently want to get him out early, your game plan evolves him. You don't want a lot of colorless sources, and this deck actually probably has too many. 2 of these lands, most likely these 2 lands here, or maybe one coming up, need to be another color fixer. Something like a Sulphur Springs, for example, would work. Then we have Waller's Stronghold. This is very good to interact with the Sire of Insanity. So if you dump your hand and you have a Sire out, you can try to return whatever creature in your hand you need to work with, like a Runescar Demon or something like that. Also, if someone wastes their entire turn removing the Sire of Insanity, you can just pull it right back. We have Cavernous Souls because demons. We have Westbow Abbey. This is Orman Doll's little home. Again, this is another joke. This is unrealistic. This is on here just for flavor. This should be a color-fixing land, because there's no way I'm realistically going to have 5 creatures out and 5 mana up at the same time to sack to create him. It's happened just a handful of times in over 2 months, and it's just not a good position to sack my demons to this. Making the humans is also just not exactly the best idea. We have Gaia Reach to help us dump some bad demons into our graveyard, and the now fetchies. We have the Myriad Landscape and a Evolving Wilds to get this giant stack of basics. I think we have about 6 of each. Let's double check that real quick here. Oh, we have 8 of each. We have 8 swamps and 8 mountains. But yeah, this is my Tribal Demon Rakdos Lord of Riots deck. Again, this is highly casual. This is a deck that can, sure, it can shoot out a big thing to attack with on the early few turns. But this deck needs to survive to the late game to actually do something meaningful. The meaningful play being Twilight Skal, all my demons back to play at instant speed, or do some kind of big X spell like the Torment of Hailfire to get everyone out of the game. Every now and then it will fall to me just on curve dumping demons into play on turn 4, 5, and 6 and attacking people out. And that's great, but realistically that doesn't happen, and the deck's not designed to actually let that happen. But yeah, this is my Tribal Demon deck. If you have any ideas or opinions, definitely let me know. Thanks.